Hello everyone, I am Dr. Athiya Arzu. Today our video is on biogeochemical cycle. From this term biogeochemical cycle, you can see here three terms are here. One is your bio, another one geo and another one chemical. What you understood from this here is bios means living, geo means earth and chemical. So this term indicates us the recycling of chemicals in this earth's surface by the activity of living organisms. Now we go for further its definition and other parts. As we already told, biogeochemical is consist of three terms. Bios means living, geo means earth, and chemical. So, definition of biogeochemical cycle is which is mainly referred to the movement of nutrients. Chemical is nutrients and other elements between biotic and abiotic factors. Now, what is biotic factors and what is abiotic factors? I have already explained here. Biotic means all living factors and abiotic means all non-living factors. All living factors includes producer, consumer, and decomposer, and non-living factors includes your air, water, and also soil. And the term biogeochemical cycle is derived from bios means biosphere, geo means geological component, and chemical means the element that moves through a cycle. And as all of us know that there is no matters in this world which can be created, which can neither be created and nor be destroyed. So it is recycled in this earth system from one form to another form, and the earth obtain energy from sun, thus the light this light energy and heat energy from sun, and thus this heat energy radiated back to the from the earth surfaces, and all other elements are present in this closed system. What are these major elements? These major elements are carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, and sulfur. Apart from this, water is also recycled. There are two types of biogeochemical cycles are there. One is your gaseous cycle, another one is your sedimentary cycle. But gaseous cycle includes carbon cycle, oxygen cycle, nitrogen cycle, and water cycle. And your sedimentary cycle includes the sulfur cycle, phosphorus cycle, and other sedimentary rocks which are recycled here. And we will go one by one. What is water cycle? As we know that water are found in basically three different forms. One is your solid form, that is ice, and liquid form and gaseous form. The water from the different water bodies like your oceans, rivers, and ponds evaporates, cools, condenses, and falls back to the earth as rain. This biogeochemical cycle is responsible for maintaining weather conditions. The water in its various forms interact with the surroundings and changes the temperature and pressure of the atmosphere. There is also another process by which water can recycle, that is evapotranspiration. What is evapotranspiration? That is vapor produced from leaves which aids this process. It is the evaporation of water from the leaves, soil and water bodies to the atmosphere, which again condenses and falls as rain. And again we go for another process, another biogeochemical, that is your carbon cycle. As we know that carbon is essential element for plants and animals growth. It is carbon cycle is one of the biogeochemical cycle in which carbon is exchanged among the biosphere, geosphere, hydrosphere, atmosphere, and pedosphere. And all green plants use carbon dioxide and sunlight for the process of photosynthesis. Carbon is thus stored in the plant. The green plants, when dead, are buried into the soil. The green plants, when dead, it buried into the soil and deposits the carbon into the soil. And this it is converted into fossil fuels, which is also made from carbon. These fossil fuels, when burnt, release carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, carbon in the form of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. And it also, when animals that consumes plants obtain the carbon stored in the plants, this carbon is returned to the atmosphere when these animals decompose after death, and the carbon also returns to the atmosphere through cellular respiration by animals. We exhale carbon dioxide, that is also one of the form of carbon, and huge carbon content in the form of carbon dioxide is produced, that is stored in the form of fossil fuels like our coal and petroleum and oil. and can be extracted for various commercial and non-commercial purposes. When factories use this fuels, the carbon is again released back into the atmosphere due to combustion, that is burning. And another cycle is our nitrogen cycle. As you can see here, the nitrogen deposited in the soil is utilized by plant, directly uptaken by the plant as its nutrients, and animals eat food. Animals consume food from plants, and also ultimately it goes to the animals. When death of animals occurs, it directly mixed into the soil, and sometimes the soil nitrogen is directly converted into atmospheric nitrogen with the help of some bacteria, some other microorganisms, and this atmospheric nitrogen sometimes fixed into the soil due to the activity of lightning, and sometimes it is fixed by nitrogen fixing bacteria and blue green algae, and also fixed nitrogen into nitrogenous compounds. It ultimately comes to the soil. The nitrogen cycle is the biogeochemical cycle by which nitrogen is converted into several forms and it gets circulated through the atmosphere and various ecosystems such as terrestrial and marine ecosystems. Nitrogen is an essential element of life. The nitrogen in the atmosphere is fixed by the nitrogen fixing bacteria present in the root nodules of the leguminous plants and made available to the soil and plant. The bacteria present in the root of the plants converted this nitrogen gas into usable compounds called ammonia. Ammonia is also supplied to plants in the form of fertilizers. The ammonia is converted into nitrites and nitrates. The denitrifying bacteria reduces the nitrates into nitrogen and return it into atmosphere. Especially rhizobium and blue-green algae is responsible to convert to refer as nitrogen-fixing bacteria. Now, another biogeochemical cycle includes oxygen cycle. As we know that oxygen, especially plants utilize oxygen for the process of photosynthesis and utilize carbon dioxide for the process of photosynthesis, and it releases oxygen to the atmosphere, and this oxygen is utilized by you human being and other animals for the process of respiration, and we exhale carbon dioxide. That carbon dioxide again utilized by plants for the process of photosynthesis. In this way, oxygen cycle is going on. This biogeochemical cycle moves through the atmosphere, the lithosphere, and the biosphere. Oxygen is an abundant element on the earth. It is found in the elemental form in the atmosphere to the extent of 21%. And oxygen is released by the plant during photosynthesis. Human and other animals inhale the oxygen, exhale carbon dioxide, and is again taken up by the plants. They utilize this carbon dioxide in photosynthesis to produce oxygen, and the cycle continues. And another chemical which is recycled in this atmosphere is our phosphorus. So in this biogeochemical cycle, phosphorus moves through the hydrosphere, lithosphere, and biosphere. And phosphorus is extracted by the weathering of rock. And due to the rains and erosion, phosphorus the phosphorus is washed away in the soil and water bodies, and plants and animals obtain this phosphorus through the soil and water, and it grows. And microorganisms also require phosphorus for their growth and development. When the plants and animals die, then decomposes, and the stored phosphorus is again returned back to the soil and water bodies, and which is again consumed by plants and animals, and the cycle continues. And another important chemical cycle is here, that is sulfur cycle. This biogeochemical cycle moves through the rocks, water bodies, and living systems. Sulfur is released into the atmosphere by the weathering of rocks and is converted into sulfates. These sulfates are taken up by the microorganisms and plants and converted into organic forms. Organic sulfur is consumed by animals through food. When the animals die and decompose, sulfur is returned to the soil, which is again obtained by the plants and microbes, and the cycle continues. So, sulfur cycle is continuous from a sedimentary cycle and hydrologic cycle, and also it comes to the atmosphere through emission of different gases like sulfate, emission of sulfate, and sometimes due to deposition, it again comes to the water surface and sediments. This, and the we finally we conclude this biogeochemical cycle, which is basically showed the process by which the energy is used. As we know that matters can neither be created nor be destroyed, it is recycled from one form to another form. So through the ecosystem, these cycles move the essential elements from life to sustain. They are vital as they recycle elements and store them too, and regulate the vital element through the physical facets. These cycles depict the association between living and non-living things in the ecosystem and enable the continuous survival of ecosystem. And it is important to comprehend these cycles to learn their effects on living entities. Some activities of human disturbs a few of these natural cycles and thereby affecting related ecosystems. A closer look at this mechanism can help us restrict and stop their dangerous impacts. So, if we will not aware about that, then the entire ecosystem will disturb, and it cannot be maintained equilibrium. So we have to keep in mind that how the ecosystem can maintain equilibrium. So this is all about our biogeochemical cycle. Thank you. Our lecture is over. We will post more and more videos uh, for, for your information. So thank you for watching these videos and comments. Give comments on this if anything is required.